Okay, so we have covered in the last 2 or 3 days the 5 hindrances, and the 5 hindrances, they prevent us from entering a more subtle sphere of perception, which is called more subtle sphere. It's called rupa. Rupa here actually means not the ordinary form as it is usually used, but a subtle form. Usually in the northern tradition, the rupa means color, varna samstana means color and shape, but here it means a subtle form. So we cannot see actually subtle forms, strictly speaking, unless we have removed the 5 hindrances. And what is the advantage of removing the 5 hindrances? In the sphere of perception dominated by subtle forms, which are purely mental, there is no place for defilements, no place for the attraction to the sensual objects, no place for resistance to sensual objects, no place for unhappy, depressed mind, for fearful mind, for distress. All these things, they exist in our world of perception dominated by 5 senses, but not in the perception dominated by subtle forms. So I have already explained before that in this perception dominated by subtle forms, you don't have anymore the inflow and outflow of impurities due to the objects of the 5 senses. These are called the kama asava. But what is still there is the bhava asava and avijja asava. We have 2 inflows and 3 kinds of inflows and outflows of impurities. The first one, when we go to the sphere of subtle forms, purely mental, is no more there. So it is kind of a release from suffering. There is no any obvious signs of suffering in the sphere of subtle forms, in the rupa dhatu. Not to speak about the arupa dhatu, where the object is even more subtle than the subtle forms. So when we remove the 5 hindrances, we do it through the service of the 5 jhana angas. Jhana angas means actually we can translate here anga as causes of the jhana. That means these subtle states of perception, they have causes, and in order to get into these subtle perceptions, we have to understand the causes well. The most important cause for reaching the first and the second dhyana is the service of the vitarka and vichara. Vitarka we can derivate from the Sanskrit root which means actually deliberation. We have to deliberate, we have to think about the object. The difference in a way between the Indian idea of thinking and or yoga idea of thinking and what we in Western world consider as thinking is quite different. Thinking actually does not need words. When the mind goes to the object, it is called thinking. Dhya. From the same root of thinking, we have dhyana. So dhyana is not a state of no thinking, it is a state of no thinking in terms of the words, in terms of the names. We don't need any more names in the rupa. So because we don't need any more names, sentences, syllables, aksharas, so the mind becomes much more subtle. It can penetrate the object without, so to say, the intermediary of the language. This is a very important experience, especially in the yoga tradition. Actually, it is explained very clearly even in Buddhist scriptures, and it is also explained in the yoga scriptures. What we actually cling to is not the reality, but the concepts, the names we form about the reality. And the difference between the saint and the ordinary man is precisely that the saint does not cling to the concepts, still he uses the concept, but he does not cling to it. We use the concepts, but we cling to them. So most of the defilements, they are not due to reality, they are due to the concepts we make about the reality. So it is said, like in Sutta Nipata, yacha loke samutiyo na ta upeti muni. The silent sage, he uses the concepts, but he does not cling to the concepts. He does not appropriate the concepts. So, of course, we live through the concepts. If we don't use the concepts, we cannot communicate. And the communication is the greatest advantage of the humans. Other animals also communicate, but their communication is not as perfect as ours due to the concepts. The concept is what elevated the man. But the concept is also what binds the man. What binds the man by this, what is in yoga tradition called vikalpas. Vikalpas from the Sanskrit root klp, which actually means fabrication. We fabricate by differentiating, not in accordance with the vastu, with the fact. So because we differentiate not in accordance with the facts, so we get caught in this endless round of samsara, and suffering connected with it. So it is very important to penetrate this falseness of clinging, not of the concepts, but of clinging to the concepts. This is actually what liberates the mind. And the practice of jhana is indeed very important for understanding that. Because in jhana, we, so to say, go beyond the forces which create the concepts. They are called precisely Vitacavichara. Vitacavichara is what the cause of the first jhana. Without vitarka and vichara, we will never go to the first jhana. Without applied and sustained attention to the meditation object, we will never attain jhana. But the same force which keeps us attached to the same object is actually the force which creates the language. Because through the language we are, so to say, bound to the object. It is called the vachi samskara, the formation of the language. Among others, the Buddha explained the process of liberation by transcending all the formations. When we transcend all the formations, we, so to say, inside and outside, we experience the reality of what the Buddhists call nirvana, the reality of no suffering, the reality of going beyond the world. So we will see the practice of jhana, the practice of real practice of shamatha is also the process of going beyond the formations. In the first dhyana, we go beyond the 5 hindrances by the service of the 5 jhana angas. So we can translate dhyana, it is often translated in this way, as upanidhyana. In Sanskrit tradition, in Pali also, upanijhana, jha, dhya means to think. Upanidhyana means a correct, right thinking. It can be often translated as correct thinking. Correct thinking is upa. Upa has the meaning of near, but it also has the meaning of no, negation. Ni is also emphatic. So the real emphatic thinking, right thinking, going through the object, is the thinking, so to say, beyond words, beyond thinking. So upanidhyana we can translate also as correct thinking. And correct thinking is we also defined dhyana as kusala citta ekagata, as the one-pointedness of the healthy mind. One-pointedness of the healthy mind is also jhana. And one-pointedness of the healthy mind is also, we can translate as a correct thinking. And the one-pointedness of the healthy mind does not allow the 5 hindrances to appear. By concentration, by one-pointed concentration, the sensual desires are kept in check. By piti or priti, which we can translate as bliss, they translate often as joy. By joy, what goes away? What is the opposite of joy? The resistance. When we have joy, we don't resist. Because resistance is always connected with unpleasant mental sensation. Joy is a pleasant mental sensation. It is, so to say, rejoicing at the object. The Northern tradition explained the joy as saumanasyam. Saumanasyam means the pleasant mental sensation. In Theravada tradition, we explain this joy as the samskara skandha, as the formation, not as a sensation. But actually the meaning is same. It is definitely connected with a pleasant mental sensation. When there is pleasant mental sensation, there is no place for resistance. Then we have tinamida, sloth and torpor. When there is vitarka, when there is applied attention to the object, vitarka, like in Chinese, is translated as xun, which means to investigate, search for the object, to contemplate the object. Contemplating means searching the object. When we contemplate the object, when we investigate the object, vitarka means also investigation. When we investigate the object, the mind will not think. When the mind does not think, then no sloth and torpor. Then excitement, and worry. How do the jhana angas check excitement and worry? We have said that according to the Abhidharma, it is the one-pointedness which checks the sensual desires. Then it is vichara, the sustained thought, which checks the doubt. It is the piti, which checks the resistance. Then what remains? Sukha. When we are happy, then when we are contented, then we are not excited. then we have no remorse, because we are not contented, and the sukha is really, we can here translate as contentment, then no place for excitement, because we have mentioned before, according to Abhidharmakosa, the excitement is connected with daurmanasyam, with unpleasant mental sensation. Because we have unpleasant mental sensation, we are excited. We have worries. In a very contented state, no place for worries, no place for excitement. So the mind will cool down. We will see that here this contentment, this pleasant sensation comes to a full bloom in the third dhyana. The third dhyana is the most peaceful contentment, most peaceful happiness. So we have these 5 jhana angas, causes of the jhanas, checking the force of the 5 hindrances. When the 5 hindrances go completely into the background due to the service of vitarka and vichara, due to the service of vitarka and vichara, which maintain the mind on the same mental object we use in meditation. So the mind can penetrate that object and merge with that object. When it merges with that object, then the object and subject appear to be in union. This state has been mistranslated very often by early European scholars as ecstasis or trance, but this is a very different state from ecstasis or trance, because it is, I have already said before, it is upanidhyana. Upanidhyana is samadhi, and samadhi means correct application of the mind to the object. We can translate as samyak adhana, the placing correctly mind on the object in a complete balance. When the mind is in complete balance, it can merge with the object. Then it can eventually go beyond the words. Now, jhana is completely a mental experience. In jhana, then the 5 senses go into the background. In Theravada tradition, we differ between the apana jhana and upachara jhana. This apana jhana, when the jhana is real apana, so the we don't actually experience anything in higher jhanas than the mental body. The physical body, so to say, is completely transcended. But this is, of course, beyond ability of the normal meditators like we are. It is said that the Buddha, when he meditated in jhana, the trees fell in the storm next to his feet while he was sitting in the forest, but he did not hear anything. His teacher Ramaputta when 500 bullock carts passed next to the place where he was sitting on the main trunk road, he did not hear also anything. Such deep one-pointedness of mind, of course, is beyond the ability of us normal meditators. But the common jhana, which is also jhana, when the five senses go completely into the background, is not so difficult experience, and everybody can benefit from it if he takes the trouble to practice. And of course, the advantage of the jhana is that in jhana there is no place for suffering, no place for unwholesome mind. The unwholesome mind can appear, as Kumarajiva has explained. They may be thoughts of pride, there may be thoughts of clinging to oneself, there may be some unpleasant memories appearing a little bit. But these what would normally be unwholesome states of mind in the sphere of karma becomes here, as Abhidharmakosa explains, avyakrita. It is not unwholesome, because the gate to the unwholesome has been closed. Has been closed by experiencing this full contentment of the jhana, full contentment of the mind. So in jhana, the meditator can experience, if he has very good concentration, can experience the mental body. Mental body being actually the base, especially when the tradition of yoga, in the tradition of Yogacara, in the tradition of Indian yoga, the mental body is what actually determines the nature of the object. Now, if we study Buddhism, we also know that, as opposed to a disciple who wants to become an arahat and finish with the suffering of samsara, a bodhisattva, he is not interested in finishing the suffering of samsara. He is interested of mastering the mental body. By mastering the mental body, he can, so to say, slowly learn to influence his process of rebirth. And jhana is indeed the experience of the mental body. The physical body goes into background, and the mental body becomes more and more subtle in the higher and higher stages of jhana, until Buddha has explained, among others, in the agamas like Bahuvedaniya Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya, through experiencing more and more subtle sensation, we go beyond sensation. Going beyond sensation is a state of a liberated mind. Same for the Buddha disciple, same for the Pratyeka Buddha, for the Bodhisattva Buddha, all Buddhas who are perfectly realized, they have gone beyond the clinging to sensations. That's what makes them Buddha from the Buddhist point of view of practice. It does not mean they don't have sensations. Surely they have sensations, and their sensations are much more clear than ours. But they do not cling to sensations. They become masters of sensations. That's what, from the Buddhist point of view, makes them liberated, by becoming masters of their sensations. Becoming masters of sensations is not appropriating the sensation. The appropriation, through the appropriation of the sensations, we appropriate all the other aggregates. So the skandhas become the upadana skandhas, the skandhas of appropriation. In the state of an arahat, the skandhas become the skandhas of liberation. Vimukti skandha, not upadana skandha. So the state of a Buddha is going beyond sensation. And the practice of the dhyanas of shamatha is experiencing always higher and higher states of subtle sensations, until the most subtle state of sensations, which is going beyond sensations. Now, we will be talking about the 4 jhanas. The practice of the 4 jhanas is the practice of, so to say, experiencing the 4th dhyana. The 4th dhyana is, according to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, according to the tradition, is the real dhyana. It is a real dhyana because, as Yogacara Bhumi Shastra explains, it is the jhana beyond clinging to sensations. In the 4th dhyana, there is no more place for clinging to sensations. Therefore, the 4th dhyana is, in the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, in the Samadhi Bhumi, it is called the Nirvana Sadrisha. It is not Nirvana. Actually, according to the Agamas, the Buddha has practiced and got the full knowledge of the 8 samapatis, full mastery of shamatha, with his teachers who considered these higher states of jhana being the liberation. But the Buddha, with his supreme intelligence, became dissatisfied with the state of these subtle sensations, knowing that when these subtle sensations are gone and one has to leave them sooner or later, then again the defilements can arise. So it is said in the Agamas, under the Bodhi tree, he practiced again, remembered the practice of the dhyanas in his early days, which he has mastered, and used these jhanas for vipassana. And this is how he actually used the supernatural powers which are connected with a complete mastery of jhanas, in order to practice vipassana. The difference between ordinary jhana and the supernatural power jhana is that in the supernatural powers, the mind has the power of the fourth dhyana, but it can move from object to object. So it can investigate whatever object it wants to investigate. In the state of jhana, because the mind has merged with the object, then it is, so to say, stuck with the object. That's why in a northern tradition, we will maybe talk about it later, the experience of shamatha is not explained as experience of the 8 samapatis, and mastery of shamatha is the mastery of 9 samapatis, including the sanya, vedaita, nirodha samapati, the cessation of sensations and perceptions. But it is explained as attaining the perfect balance of the mind through the 9 stages of cultivation called chitta stitis. The jhana is not mentioned, but one can go into jhana, one can go into jhana, one can go into any investigation when the mind is fully one-pointed and motionless. But the mind becomes only motionless really in the 4th dhyana. So the 4th dhyana is the perfect dhyana because the mind becomes motionless. What moves the mind is especially the sensations. And in the sensations, according to Abhidharma, all the other mental factors, they meet together. It is the importance of sensations. Vedana, in Sanskrit, Vedana is from the same root like knowledge. Vidya, vit. We actually penetrate the object through sensations. But the sensations is also that which deludes the mind. It can liberate the mind, but it can delude the mind. Depends on the wisdom of the yogi. If the yogi has wisdom, the sensation liberates the mind. If yogi has no wisdom, the sensation will bind the mind. What binds the mind is especially sensation, because the mind, according to the agamas, differentiates according to sensation. Chula Vedala Sutta explains, Dhammadina explains exactly that. What the mind actually differentiates is based on sensations. Now, in jhana, the sensations are always pleasant. There is no place in jhana for unpleasant sensation. We have explained that. And that pleasant sensation becomes more and more subtle, more and more pleasant, until the 4th dhyana, which is, so to say, most pleasant sensation. Most pleasant sensation is neutral sensation. In the 4th dhyana, there is no place for joy, no place for happiness, no place for unpleasant mental or bodily sensation. And so the dhyana becomes perfect. So dhyana becomes perfect because the meditator gets into the state of more and more subtle formations. Jhana is also a formation, therefore it is not liberation. It is formed. This is what Buddha understood, and this is why he left his teachers, not considering the attainment of jhanas as liberation. The jhanas are formed. They have angas, but always kusala angas. Kusala angas means the wholesome causes. And these wholesome causes becomes more and more subtle as we go higher and higher in the practice of dhyana. So with this, let us go finally to the text, and we will try, because we want to discuss especially this text. So we have explained that we get into the dhyana due to the kushala, the healthy Vitacavichara, healthy applied and sustained thought or attention. This is what takes us to the jhana. This is also explained in the Visuddhimagga in 2nd chapter, the verse 28. Savitarka vichara tvat kushale kamachetasi. Because we have this healthy in the sphere of perception, still influenced by sensual, by 5 senses, we have cultivated the wholesome one-pointedness of mind. First, when we meditate, we have to take the object with the 5 senses. Suppose we meditate on the breath, we first experience the breath with the body, as in-breath, out-breath being vibration, being pushing sensation. This pushing sensation is the bodily sensation. When we apply one-pointed mind to that, then this sensation becomes more and more mental sensation. And finally, the bodily sensation of in-breath and out-breath becomes more and more subtle. So it, as it becomes more and more subtle, the mental sensation becomes more and more obvious, and the bodily sensation goes into background. This is how one gets into jhana, through the service of wholesome, applied and sustained thought or attention. In the Visuddhimagga, it is compared to Raja Vallabhi, the intimate friend of the king being the more subtle happiness, more subtle sensation. In order to, for an ordinary person like ourselves, in order to get audience with the king, we need an introduction from a secretary, from a minister or whatever. Then this secretary or minister is precisely the Vitacavichara, it is an intimate friend of the king which introduces us to king's presence. Here, the jhana presence. This is the explanation we get in the Vitacavichara. Why? Because the enjoyment of the king are more subtle. So the enjoyment of jhana is also much more subtle than whatever enjoyment we can have through the services of the body. So the mental enjoyment is indeed much more lasting longer and much more satisfying than the bodily enjoyment. When we spiritualize, mentalize the bodily enjoyment, then this state is the more subtle enjoyment. But if the enjoyment is turned outside, it will be always has gross, non-long-lasting nature. Therefore, Abhidharmakosa clearly explains that in the sphere of five senses, the five senses always savikalpa, always accompanied by vikalpa, by fabrication. Fabrication based on the differentiation through sensations, clinging to sensations. We clinging to sensations, so we differentiate according to this clinging, and it will be always connected with fabrications. So in the text, we have the classical explanation of the jhana, completely same in Theravada. If the practitioner has contemplated in this way and removed five hindrances while gathering all the wholesome karmas, all the wholesome dharmas, the five jhana angas we have explained, he will be able to enter deeply into one-pointed concentration. One-pointed concentration using Yogacara, Bhumi Shastra. One-pointed, every jhana has a cause, it has enjoyment, and cause, enjoyment, and what? So the cause of all jhanas is one-pointed mind. Sorry, I have mixed up. All jhanas have the base, ashraya. The ashraya of all jhanas is a one-pointed mind, ekagata. Now, the cause of the first jhana is Vitacavichara. Each jhana, as we will see, has a cause. And the cause of first dhyana is the Vitacavichara, the sustained and applied attention or thought directed to a mental object, which, so to say, isolates the body. Isolation of the body is the kaya viveka, is the cause of jhana. We isolate the body, it means we pay attention to the mental object. The body is concerned with mental object. According to yoga, actually all objects of meditation have to be mental objects. Same in the yoga tradition, same in Yogacara. The conclusion of Yogacara and also of some yoga traditions like Kashmiri yoga, it is the key for understanding that actually not only in meditation, but actually all the time, all objects are mental objects. This is the best skillful means to get into deep meditation, to consider all objects a mental object. Why? Because the mental touch we have explained is much more subtle than the touch of the five senses, and that which is more subtle, it is a rule in yoga, should control that which is more gross. This is how yoga is explained. By more subtle, we go beyond the more gross. By experiencing, in the language of Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, by experiencing more and more subtle prashrabdi, pliancy, we remove more and more gross daushtulyam, grossness. In the state of the Buddha, no more place for grossness. Prashrabdi is continuous. In our state, the prashrabdi, the pliancy, is in a state of flow. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Why? Because of our clinging to sensations. So then each jhana has a base, same for all jhanas, one-pointedness. Each jhana has a cause. In first jhana, Vitacavichara, and each jhana has benefits. And the benefit of the first dhyana is pite sukha, is joy and happiness, or bliss and happiness. Bhikkhu Bodhi explains rapture and happiness. We can choose anyway. Pite is something, is a rejoicing at the object, and sukha is the penetration of the mental, of all mental formations through the pleasant sensation. As described in the Buddhist scriptures, the meditator having abundant sensual desires, so sensual desires is the most important hindrance, and most important hindrance is to be abandoned first. When one abandons the sensual desires, then one can abandon all unwholesome dharmas. As we have explained, no more place for akusala in the dhyana. It does not mean that dhyana cannot have inflow and outflow of impurities. It can have, but it will be connected with bhava asava, not with kama asava. And bhava asava is avyakrita, cannot be defined as unwholesome. Unwholesome in an unhealthy state. Because in the world, without the having attachment to existence, we will not be able to function. Enters the first dhyana that is accompanied with applied and sustained thought. This is the cause. With rapture and pleasure, this is the enjoyment. Born of seclusion, vivekaja. All the next jhanas we will see, they are called samadhija. They are born of samadhi. But the first dhyana is the only one which is called vivekaja, born of seclusion. Why? The others also have seclusion, but they are not born of seclusion. Seclusion is the natural state in the dhyana. Seclusion from the five senses. Seclusion from attachment to the five senses. In the jhana, we can still experience, because our jhana will never, at least in this existence, probably be perfect. But we can still experience, but we will not be seduced by creating unwholesome mind due to that. Because the object is mental and the non-mental objects go into background. When we get the full apana, then say disappear completely. Not in the first dhyana. In the first dhyana still only disappear the nose and taste. But in the higher dhyanas, when we have a full apana, all the other three of the five senses, they, so to say, disappear. They are transcended. In our case, not completely transcended, but beyond attraction. Sometimes these explanations are very intriguing. That's why, especially in Theravada countries, many people think that dhyana is like madness. You don't feel anything, you don't see anything, you don't hear anything, but it is not like that. All these, they go into background. But it does not mean that it is not a dhyana. It is still a dhyana. So this seclusion is from the body being the ruler of all the other senses. So the question that comes is, what are the characteristics connected with the attainment of the first dhyana? And the answer is, this is very important, through the practice of right mindfulness, the meditator remains connected to the karmasthana, to kamathana, to the meditation object. He is not distracted. And due to this, also explained very clearly in Visuddhimagga, due to this he experiences a pleasant sensation. When we experience the pleasant sensation, because the beings always want pleasant sensation, when we experience a pleasant sensation, what the beings actually search for, what is the meaning of existence, is the happiness. When one experiences the happiness, the mind will stabilize. This is clearly explained in the Abhidharma, in the Agamas also. When we pay attention to the mental object, we will experience mental happiness. When the mind has found continuity with that object due to right mindfulness. Right mindfulness means mindfulness without grasping. If we grasp, we will lose the prashrabdhi. We will lose appliance. When we lose appliance, we will lose the subtle happiness. So there has to be samskara upeksha. There has to be the balance. Samskara upeksha, the equanimity means we don't cling to the pleasant, we don't reject the unpleasant, so the mind has balance. It does not mean pleasant or unpleasant mental sensation. It means indifference. Indifference is not a good word. Equanimity to pleasant or unpleasant sensation. Pleasant sensation is there when the mindfulness holds the object, when mindfulness rules the attention, but the meditator will not be seduced by this pleasant sensation. He let it go. Because he let go the pleasant sensation, he attains more balance. More balance is more one-pointed mind. Because basically the mastery of shamatha means mastery of the balanced mind. Balanced mind is a happy mind. So then the sensation of his body and mind will become pleasant, soft, pliable, and his body will emit light even before the stage of attainment. That means one is nearing the sphere of subtle forms, which is the sphere of subtle materiality. Subtle materiality emits light. The gross materiality does not emit light. We need to get into the sphere of subtle materiality to find that our object, which is the material object like breath, is actually emitting light. It has become mental object, which we feel through the mental sensation. The bodily sensation, the vibration goes into background. The heat and coolness goes into background or cease to be experienced at all. So the materiality and derived materiality, bhuta bhautikas, in the sphere of, in the rupa sphere, in the sphere of subtle form, become very subtle. When the object becomes subtle, the sensation becomes subtle. When the sensation becomes subtle, the mind becomes subtle. Means mental formations become subtle. So the experience becomes more and more satisfying. The mind of the practitioner will change. The object that used to cause his resentment will no longer irritate him, and those that caused him joy will not gladden him. There is no more concern with the panchakama guna, with the objects of the five senses. One lets go completely the concern for them. So we will finish this first dhyana and try to go into the second dhyana and explain clearly the cause of second dhyana, the base of second dhyana, the pleasure of second dhyana. All these become more subtle. The one-pointedness becomes more subtle. The cause becomes more subtle. In the second dhyana, the cause is called inner clarity. This inner clarity becomes more subtle, or inner faith. And the pleasure becomes more subtle. The mental and bodily here, bodily means actually mental body becomes more subtle. So we will go through these jhana slowly, and I hope you can get a more and more clear picture of how one works in these subtle spheres of perceptions, which the jhana are. And the subtle perception means a subtle sensation, and subtle sensation means subtle perception. And these sensations and perceptions is what forms the mind. Because of their importance, the Buddha has, even so they are also, as Abhidharmakosa clearly explains, even so they are also formations, samskara. So as such they should belong to the samskara skandha, but due to their importance, Buddha has made them independent skandhas, independent aggregates, because of their importance of completely forming the mind. So in the jhana, these formations of the mind becomes more and more subtle as we go higher and higher. The perceptions, the sensations become beyond the what we understand as subtle, what we understand as pleasant, in a sphere dominated by five senses. So that much for today. Let us go to questions if there are any.
If anyone has any questions, you could raise your hand, or you could type in the inbox, in the chat box. I think
No questions?
Kamal, I'm unmuting you. Kamal, can you unmute yourself? You have a question?
Yes. Namaste Bhante. I have two questions actually.
Okay.
You mentioned Bhante that neutral sensations are the most pleasant sensations.
Not
seems
ordinarily. In fourth dhyana, you have the neutral sensation. This neutral sensation of the fourth dhyana is actually the cause of the fourth dhyana. In the others, there you have all pleasant sensation, but here you have neutral sensation, na sukha, na dukkha, and that is the cause. Like the Vitacavichara is the cause of the first dhyana. In the fourth dhyana, only in the fourth dhyana, the neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation is the cause of the fourth dhyana, because the we will learn later, because the mindfulness and awareness have been purified.
So when it comes to neutral sensations, Bhante, what should be the state of mind to experience those in terms of should we be just observing the neutral sensations? Because I read one of the text, Buddhist text, that Theravada text, where it says when the mind becomes indifferent or objective or equanimous to the to neutral sensations, that's the state when the mind is capable of growing further, the progress is assured, something like that.
Yes, so you should remember there is a difference. You will find also in Abhidharma, there is a difference between nasukha, nadukha, vedana in the states of normal, of the mind lowers and fourth dhyana, and there is the here it means in the kama sphere, and there is a difference between neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation in the fourth dhyana. In the fourth dhyana, it is a perfect sensation. But in the kama sphere, this sensation will have the anushaya of the ignorance.
Okay.
Normally, when we have pleasant sensation, we have the latent tendency for grasping. When we have unpleasant sensation, we have latent tendency of rejecting, pratigha. When we have neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation, we have the tendency to ignorance. We search for something, excitement, right? So this is let me finish.
Sure. Sorry.
This is the avijja anusaya. Now, Buddha also explains in the Agamas that the neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation is pleasant for the wise, for the muni, and is unpleasant for the putujana, for the common man. Because the common man always wants some excitement. His mind is not in balance. But when you in the fourth dhyana, you have no interest for any excitement because the mind is without injita. It is called nir-injita. It is beyond moving. The mind moves, I have explained, because of attachment to sensation. So until the fourth dhyana, the mind is called sa-injita. It is called with tendency to move, because the pleasant sensation has the anushaya, the latent tendency of clinging. But when it disappears in the fourth dhyana, but you have to go through the other dhyanas, then it will become the most pleasant sensation beyond sensation. The most pleasant sensation is beyond sensation, but it is very difficult to explain. We will talk about it more when we go in our explanation to the higher jhanas. Then we will see how the higher jhanas are going beyond possibility of attachment to sensations. This possibility of going beyond attachment to sensations is only completely perfected in the state of fourth dhyana, and fully perfected forever, not forever, but for almost forever, in the state of sanya vedaita nirodha samapatti, where the object and subject are both nirvana. So there is no place for any attachment to perception or sensation whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah. Bhante, I have, sorry.
Yeah.
I have another question, Bhante. In fact, two parts in this question. One is practicing jhana. Does it help in overcoming our defilements? And secondly, investigations into formations or our defilements. Does a state of jhanas help investigating our defilements? Because like you said that mind is unmoved in the state, in the fourth jhana, it is not capable of investigation. Am I right, Bhante, if I am correct?
There is a lot of confusion on this topic. In the northern tradition, we speak of always of the practicing vipassana in the jhana. In the southern tradition, it is said that you go out of jhana to practice vipassana. But it is only explanation. Actually, you remain in what is called in northern tradition samantaka or upachara jhana. And samantaka, in order to practice vipassana, you have to, so to say, go to samantaka. And in samantaka, you can investigate any object that you want. So the object is still the object of jhana, because when you go out of jhana, you can see the mind which is still in jhana and whose object is also jhana. This is the advantage of the jhana for vipassana. When you are in a jhana, you can, so to say, go out of jhana, which is not really going out, because the object you see is the object of jhana. And you see it where? You see it in the mind. In Theravada tradition, in the bhavanga, where this object comes from. This mental object comes from bhavanga, and you can actually see it in the jhana. And when you see it in the jhana, you will also see the flow of mind which goes to the jhana. And in that flow of mind, you can clearly also see the causes of the jhana. And this is how you practice vipassana. You see them as impermanence, and you see impermanence as being non-self. So this is advantage of using the more subtle spheres of perception and sensations for vipassana. If you do not do that, it does not mean you cannot attain liberation, but even in Theravada, without the jhanas, somehow the cultivation cannot be completed, will be incomplete. So only with the jhana, even the arahat, only with the jhanas is double liberated. And in the tikas, you will find that without the jhanas, without the 8 vimokshas and so on, the paramis will be very limited. The more accomplished in jhanas, the more accomplished in the vimokshas, the more accomplished in abhidharmatanas and so on, in the kasinas, the more paramis, dhyana paramis one has. And dhyana paramis are very important. Only Buddha has completed fully the dhyana parami. Not even Moggallana has such ability of jhanas and vimokshas like the Buddha himself. So the practice of jhana should not be underestimated. Actually, the Theravada tradition in the Visuddhimagga, almost half of the book is devoted to the jhana, to the shamatha chapters. It is a very important part of training. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bhante, we have a couple of more questions. I'll request Chotsu. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right. Could you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you, Supriya. You were pronouncing it just fine. Thank you, Bhante, for your explanations. I have a couple of questions. One is, how can there be absolute motionlessness even beyond the fourth jhana? And then the second question is, how do we go beyond clinging to concepts?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
This is a long way. You cannot go beyond concepts, and you cannot go beyond being moved unless you have done a long practice. We have explained even in the jhanas, you will not be perfect. Only the Buddha is perfect in the jhana. We ordinary practitioners, we may attain the jhanas. This is not so difficult, and we may master the jhanas. We may even attain some supernatural powers. This also is not impossible, but we will never attain the full mastery of the jhana. This is Buddha has practiced, if we believe the Jatakas, for innumerable lives. So the immovable mind is this mind free of injita, is the mind which is in perfect balance and has no place for clinging to sensations. All clinging is directly or indirectly connected to sensation. It is impossible that there is a clinging without sensation. This is very important to understand. That is why we have explained in the fourth dhyana is immovable, and the same in the higher jhanas, because there can be only one sensation, and that is neither pleasant nor unpleasant. In a pleasant sensation, as I have explained, there is a place for attachment. In unpleasant sensation, there is a place for resistance. But in neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation, which is connected with this perfectly balanced mind, there is neither place for attachment nor place for resistance. So this is called beyond injita, beyond being moved. So actually this experience of the balanced mind, not being subjected to moving, is perfect in the fourth dhyana, but the fourth dhyana is actually only means. It is not yet. So I have explained, it is called sadrisha nirvana, similar to nirvana because of this going beyond sensation. But this going beyond sensation is only by shaking off the that which moves the mind. We will talk about it later. They are taught the apalakshas in the Sanskrit tradition. 8 apalakshas make the jhana sa-injita. When the 8 apalakshas are gone in the fourth dhyana, so it is beyond injita, nir-injita. So one has to train systematically in getting rid of these apalakshas, Vitacavichara, pleasant and unpleasant bodily and mental sensations, in-breath and out-breath. These are these apalakshas that make the mind still give tendency to mind to move, even in the jhana. But they are gone in the fourth dhyana. So the meditator is in a perfect balance, like nirvana. But it is not nirvana, because as soon as he goes out of fourth dhyana, the still defilements will come. Still attachment to pleasant will come. Resistance to unpleasant. As to the going beyond concepts, this is indeed a very, very long process. First, we have to know how to work with the concepts. Then we can go beyond the concept. So the beginning, the first of the Eightfold Noble Path is the Samadhi, the right view. Without the right view, you cannot have the real wisdom. You cannot have the real thinking. And the right view, right thinking is connected with the non-self, seeing the non-self. When we see the non-self, only then we will have the right view and the right thought. Then you use the concept, but then you learn to use the concept, but do not cling to the concept. Because the concepts also do not belong to the self, are not the self. And because they don't belong to the self, they are empty. The Abhidharmakosa explains very clearly. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. I just wondered what would impel the use of concepts if there's an absence of clinging to them.
Well, the absence of clinging to them is only possible through vipassana. When one experiences through vipassana the selflessness of our experience, then there is no place for clinging to concepts. But one also experiences it temporarily by practicing the jhana. This is the advantage of the jhanas. In jhanas also we go beyond attachment to the concepts, but temporarily. These anushayas, the latent tendencies, remain. But they, because we experience in jhanas states of mind where mind is not bound to the concept, so to certain extent it is easier to detach from the concept. But the attachment to the concept will still be there until the vipassana is not fully realized.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bhante. Anumodana. Thank you.
Bhante, Gautam has a question. Gautam, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, Gautamji.
वंदनी बंते जी
Okay, please.
हाँ बंते जी, मेरा क्वेश्चन थोड़ा लंबा है. मुझे ये पूछना था लोकोत्तर चित्त के बारे में कि लोकोत्तर चित्तों को कुशल चित्त कहा जाता है. और जैसे अरंत के जो होता है कि पुगल पैती में दिया गया है कि यस्स पुगल स रूपरागो अरूपरागो मानो उद्धचं अविज्जा अनवशेषा पहिना अयं उच्चति पुगलो अरहा. तो यहाँ पे दिया गया है कि जो मान है ना, तो और अभिधम्मत संगो में दिया है कि मानो चतुषु दिट्ठिगत विपयुक्तेषु, यानी जो अकुशल चार दिट्ठिगत विपयुक्त चित्त है उसमें मान होता है, कुशल चित्तों में नहीं होता है. लेकिन अगर हम पुगल पैत को देखेंगे तो फिर ये पता चलता है कि सोतापन्न, सर्दागामी और अनागामी तक मान होता है, और जब वो अरहंत बन जाता है तब मान निकल जाता है. तो बनते ये तो कुशल चित्त होते हैं, तो इसमें तो और मान होना नहीं चाहिए अगर हम अकुशल चेतसिक संप्रयोग को देखेंगे।
माना तो है, लेकिन माना ये सिर्फ
संयोजन
भाव आसावा, मैंने कहा भाव आसावा अव्याकृत है, काम आसावा अकुशल है, भाव आसावा अव्याकृत है। ये बहुत स्पष्ट अभिधर्म में प्रकाशित हुआ। ये जान में ये काम आसावा नहीं उत्पन्न होता है, ये असंभव है। इसलिए जाना बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। समझ गया?
हाँ, लेकिन बंटी जी फिर एक काम राग जो कहा जाता है, काम राग व्यापादा,
ये
तो ये
लेकिन कामा दो प्रकार के होता है। काम छंदा और धम्म छंदा। काम छंदा अकुशल है, धम्म छंदा कुशल है। तो फिर भी छंदा ये भी तन्हा है ना?
हाँ, छंद also चेतसिक,
छंदा also चेतसिक है, लेकिन ये चेतसिक कुशल हो सकता है, अकुशल भी हो सकता है।
अकुशल भी। लेकिन मान बंते जी, मान चेतसिक जो होता है तो वो तो सिर्फ यहाँ पे
ये माना,
अकुशल चेतसिक,
लेकिन माना का मूल ये लोभा है। लोभा इसमें भी मतलब अभिधर्म कोश के अनुसार रागा भी कुशल हो सकता है, अकुशल भी हो सकता है, लेकिन लोभा तेरवाद अभिधर्म में सिर्फ अकुशल है। लेकिन रागा अभिधर्म कोश के अनुसार कुशल भी हो सकता है, अकुशल भी हो सकता है।
तो मान भी बनते जी कुशल और अकुशल दोनों हो सकता है।
रागा कुशल अकुशल दोनों हो सकता है, क्योंकि रागा मतलब मन रंजित है, रंज मतलब वरना है। वरना किस वजह से? छांदस से। तो रागा द्वेषा अभिधर्म कोश के अनुसार भी अकुशल हो सकता है, कुशल भी हो सकता है। क्यों? क्योंकि ये अकुशल धर्म का द्वेषा ये भी द्वेषा है। इसलिए ये विश्लेषण थोड़ा ये एक ही नहीं है तेरवाद अभिधर्म में और तेरवाद अभिधर्म में ये बिल्कुल प्रैक्टिकल है, लेकिन ये संस्कृत अभिधर्म में ये ज्यादातर मतलब लॉजिक के अनुसार
इंटेलेक्चुअल है।
ये फर्क ऐसा फर्क होता है, लेकिन ये फर्क ठीक है। ये हमारा ये सोचने के लिए बहुत जरूरी है। यदि सब एक ही है तो हम ठीक सही बात है। इसलिए अभिधर्म ये परमार्थ नहीं है, अभिधर्म सिर्फ मार्ग है समझने के लिए। लेकिन यदि हम अभिधर्म परमार्थ रूप में समझते हैं, ये गलत है। हम एक ही चीज दूसरे कौन से देख सकते हैं? जैसे प्रीति अभिधर्म कोश में सौमनस्यम, अभिधम्मता संग्रह में प्रीति ये संखार खंड, ये प्रकाशन अलग अलग है, लेकिन अर्थ तो एक ही है, रिजॉइसिंग एट द ऑब्जेक्ट, है और नहीं?
यस।
अच्छा,
मेरा सवाल बंत जी मान को लेकर ही था, क्योंकि मान यहाँ पे दिया गया है कि जब वो अरंत बनता है तब निकलता है, और
मान ये लोभाचिता है,
लोभचित्त है।
मान लोभाचिता है। ये अभिधम्मता संग्रह में स्पष्ट लिखा हुआ है, माना ये लोभाचिता है। लोभाचिता बराबर अकुशल है, लेकिन रागा बराबर अकुशल नहीं है। प्रेम ये भी राग है। प्रेम अभिधर्म कोश के अनुसार प्रेम मतलब श्रद्धा, मतलब ये अनुभव एक ही है, लेकिन प्रकाशन अलग अलग हो सकता है, क्यों नहीं? ये अभिधर्म कोश और वैभाषिक गलत है और अनुरुद्धाचार्य ठीक है, ये हम नहीं कर सकते हैं, है हो नहीं? Okay, so we should finish now. They would never be end if we go too much into questions. Let's leave some questions for next time. Eta vata chamehi sambhatam punya sampadam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Eta vata chamehi sambhatam punya sampadam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Eta vata chamehi sambhatam punya sampadam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Aka satta chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiramrakantu lokasasana. Aka satta chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiramrakantu desana. Aka satta chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiramrakantu tumampara. Devo vasatu kalena sasa sampati hotucha. Pito bhavatu lokocha raja bhavatu dhammiko. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, so have a wonderful week and see you next week again. Okay?
You too, Bhante. Take care.
When is Supriya?
Yes, Bhante.
Saraswati Puja finished now already?
Saraswati Puja?
Not yet. Huh? It's coming. This time is usually Holy Saraswati Puja.
Holy. Holy not yet come. It will come. Tomorrow is Mahashivratri.
Aha, okay. And when is Holi?
I'll just tell you.
It's soon, no?
Yeah. I'll just tell you. I don't have the date here.
Never mind.
Okay, my Gautam.
28th.
28th of March?
Yeah.
28th, he says. So towards the end of the month.
Gautam, thank you very much for taking care of Sakravadi. Huh?
Thank you, Bhantiji.
I am unable to go now because I am stuck. And in summer, not likely to be any better. So maybe only next year I will be able to go to India.
Now that we have the Sanskrit institution and the Jainism institution with us together, so Gautam is planning to take people from the other two institutions also. And there is a young girl in the Jainism institution who teaches Preksha Dhyan. And she's very good. People really appreciate, and she has a very good knowledge of Prakrit also. And so yeah, we are planning things. Only thing is, Bhante, over there also, there is a restriction on gathering, X number of people. Yeah. So we're looking at maybe next month, at least planning, and we're thinking of making some YouTube videos, which could, people could watch short videos. I'll send you when we start developing. Bhante, Gautam is going to do maybe 4 or 5 short videos on the Dhammapada.
Oh,
because that is a lovely text. And
in Taiwan, they have published very nicely for free distribution with illustrations,
images,
beautiful pictures also. The Hindi translation with Pali of Dhammapada with the stories. Maybe you can order from the Buddhist public Buddhist, how it's called, in Taiwan.
I know the people. Yeah, we could ask them. Yeah.
Then you can distribute it also there. I think
correct.
They have, correct. It is very well done, this Dhammapada, with the Atakatha also stories chosen.
Yeah, the stories, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. But right now, the first thing we will do, Bhante, is maybe explore the possibility of the training of people in skills, the handyman skills, the plumber, and we are looking at doing a survey, so that will start next week.
Okay.
To see if we can help train
India
people
now,
for better living.
India is now managing to control, much better than
the COVID?
Yeah.
It's going up again. That's what's worrying. In Mumbai, in Maharashtra, it's going up again.
Again?
Every day, little more. Yes, Bhante.
So
we had come down quite a bit. So there is in the Aurangabad district, there are some areas which are locked down. In Mumbai city, in Thane area, and even in Powai, they're doing local, they're not shutting down the whole place, but where there are enough. And the vaccine has still to get administered. They're doing a very good job. The senior citizens are getting vaccinated. And those under 60 maybe who have some health issues.
Vaccine, no?
Yes, Bhante. 2 types of vaccines are there.
That's great.
But a lot of people are scared. They don't want to get it.
Yeah, same here. I also did not. I am a senior, but I did not go for vaccination because I am living in the forest, so I don't get exposed so much. If you don't really need it, so maybe after some times it will be better, I'm sure. If not, then I will go. Anyway, Supriya, all the best.
Thank you.
And, we keep in touch. Huh? And maybe we should slowly think about the notes I should prepare, or shall we ask someone to help to prepare the notes?
We are going to, no, Bhante, we will start here, but we will transcribe these lectures first and send you. Then you can take a look and edit that.
Okay. Okay.
I think that would be a good place to start.
And then I will start slowly to make more notes, but I can't use computer. Somebody has to teach me how to make notes. I don't know.
We will do that, and yeah. Shutsa has also offered some help, so we can, yeah.
I have plenty, I can add plenty of notes, but I don't really know how to do it. I will try to learn a little bit more. I am hopeless in that. Okay, Supriya, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.
Děkuji vám, takže jsem tady mohla být.